What's the most unprofessional thing you've ever seen a coworker do? I worked in a call center where one guy brought in a hot plate and cooked fish at his desk. Not once, daily. The entire floor smelled like a seafood market in August. When management finally told him to stop, he brought in a George Foreman grill and started making paninis instead. The man said, "You didn't say anything about sandwiches." HR eventually had to write a no cooking devices rule just for him. At my first office job, a coworker would clip his toenails under his desk. He claimed he was multitasking. No one knew until someone walked by and got hit with a flying nail shard. He was banned from removing his shoes at work but still tried to sneakily clip between conference calls. His cubicle was eventually moved next to the air conditioning unit as punishment. One woman I worked with would take calls in the bathroom, not just quick responses, but full-on conference calls. You'd hear her say things like, "Let's circle back on that," while toilets flushed in the background. The worst part? She once unmuted herself and said, "Hang on, I'm finishing up." She thought she was muted again. She wasn't. There was a guy who claimed to be a licensed energy healer and started cleansing people's desks by waving burning sage around them. Someone complained, and he said, "You're just resisting the vibrations." The fire alarm went off when he lit incense near the copier. Security escorted him out. He told them he foretold this outcome. At a retail job, one guy used the intercom system to confess his feelings to another employee, loudly, over the whole store. Attention all shoppers, but more importantly, Sarah. She didn't respond. He got fired the next day, but his announcement made it into the training slideshow under "Don't do this." We had a guy who would sleep under his desk, not just naps, full-on REM cycles. He brought in a pillow and a blanket and said the sound of typing helped him relax. When someone reported him, he claimed he was participating in a mindfulness study. He ended up getting transferred to night shift, probably slept even better. A coworker once got caught printing out over 100 pages of fan fiction on the company printer. She'd walk by every 10 minutes and collect a few pages like no one would notice. The kicker? It was her fan fiction. She was proofreading it in the break room with a red pen like she was editing a novel. There was a guy in IT who brought in a fog machine for a team meeting to create atmosphere. It filled the entire conference room with smoke while he presented Q3 metrics like he was on stage at a rock concert. When asked why, he said, "Numbers should feel epic." He was given a written warning and a standing ovation. I once worked with someone who responded to every email, no matter the content, with a GIF. Not a signature, a full GIF. Even to clients. Someone emailed about a shipping error, and she replied with a minion falling downstairs. She said it lightened the mood. She was promoted 2 months later. I still don't understand. One employee brought her parrot to work. Just walked in with a bird on her shoulder like it was a Tuesday. The bird yelled, "You're late," every time someone walked in. When management asked her to take it home, she said, "He's union." We never saw the parrot again, but she started wearing a Bluetooth earpiece and occasionally mimicked his voice. Coworkers who were fired on the spot. What did they do? A guy in our warehouse was caught trying to ship a flat-screen TV to his own house. He had printed a fake shipping label, boxed it up, and even marked it as customer return, defective. The only reason he got caught? He used his actual home address and signed the packing slip, "Thanks, me." Security walked him out before his lunch break. We had a new hire who made it less than 3 hours. During onboarding, they asked what the company's drug policy was. Not unusual. Then they asked if it covered only normal drugs or spiritual ones too. When they took a break and never came back, HR checked the security footage. They were seen licking the break room vending machine and whispering to the bag of chips. Gone before noon. At a restaurant I worked at, a server got into a shouting match with a customer over a coupon. When the manager stepped in, the server screamed, "I am the manager now," and tried to tear the name tag off their boss's shirt. They were fired immediately. As they left, they took someone's untouched fries from table 6 and walked out like it was a trophy. We had an IT guy who tried to prank the office by replacing everyone's desktop wallpapers with photos of their houses from Google Street View. Nobody knew how he got their addresses. He was gone by 2 p.m. and left a post-it on his desk that said, "Don't trust routers." A coworker was fired on the spot for microwaving a can of soup. Not opening it first, just tossing the entire metal can into the microwave and hitting start. It exploded, destroyed the microwave, and filled the kitchen with scorched tomato paste. His defense? The label didn't say not to. A woman in accounting got fired after she accidentally emailed the entire company a spreadsheet of everyone's salaries, followed by a second email that said "oops." She then tried to retract the message, but instead sent a meme of a dumpster fire. She was gone within the hour. We once had a guy get fired for faking a work emergency to leave early. He claimed his mother had been hospitalized, but he accidentally left his personal laptop open at his desk, playing World of Warcraft. His guild was live streaming their raid. With him on voice chat, talking about how fake emergencies get you prime game time. HR walked in before the boss even finished watching the clip. A new hire tried to expense a $400 sushi dinner for client entertainment. The receipt literally said party of one and was timestamped for a Saturday night. When asked to clarify, he said, "The client was me. I was trying to build trust. Gone by Monday." At a corporate job, a guy showed up on his first day, took the office chair from his cubicle, wheeled it to the parking lot, and never came back. No explanation. Just rolled it out the door, stuffed it into his trunk, and vanished. Security tried to call, but the number on file was disconnected. It became office legend. One guy was fired immediately after being caught sneaking into the building after hours with a full karaoke setup. He had set up a disco ball, speakers, and was belting out 80s hits alone in the conference room at 1 a.m. Security asked what he was doing, and he said, "Vocalizing my exit strategy." What's the weirdest thing you've walked in on at work? I once walked into the break room and found two co-workers sitting on the floor, cross-legged, with candles lit and chanting over a frozen lasagna. They said they were infusing it with positive energy before microwaving it. I just wanted to heat up my soup. I backed out slowly and used the upstairs kitchen for the rest of the year. At a retail job, I opened the stockroom door and found our store manager dressed as a wizard, full robe, hat, and staff, giving a motivational speech to a stack of inventory boxes. He turned, saw me, and said, "The spell isn't ready yet." Then he turned back around and kept talking. I never asked about it again. I walked into the copy room and caught a coworker printing 100 flyers with their face on them. No text, no explanation, just a headshot with increasingly unhinged facial expressions. When I asked what they were for, they said, "We all leave traces behind." I still have one of those flyers taped to my fridge. One morning I came in early and caught my boss having what appeared to be a very intense therapy session with a life-size cardboard cutout of a local news anchor. He was pacing, venting, gesturing wildly. When he saw me, he just nodded and said, "We're having a breakthrough." I closed the door and took a long walk before starting my shift. I worked in a small office where everyone brought lunch from home. One day I opened the fridge and found a fully intact birthday cake, uncut, unclaimed, and just there. No note, no announcement. For 3 days, it sat untouched. On the 4th day it was gone. No one ever mentioned it. It haunts me. I once walked in on a coworker doing a full costume change in the supply closet. I opened the door, and he was halfway into a mascot suit. Giant foam head under one arm, Velcro half-strapped. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You weren't supposed to see this." I never figured out why he was doing it, or who he was supposed to be. During an overnight shift, I checked the security monitors and saw a coworker practicing interpretive dance in the warehouse, alone. Dramatic movements, full commitment. I went down to check, and he froze like I'd walked in on a sacred ritual. He just said, "It helps with the stress," and kept going. Respect. I walked into a meeting room and found a team of developers playing hide-and-seek in the dark with Nerf guns. They claimed it was tactical problem-solving. Their manager was crouched under the table with a helmet made out of taped-together coffee filters. When I asked if I could join, they handed me a foam dart and said, "You're already playing." At a hotel job, I once opened a guest laundry room and found our maintenance guy building a tiny fort out of folded towels. Not stacking them, building a fort. He looked up, smiled, and said, "I ran out of bricks," then went back to it. The man fixed the elevators too. I never questioned his methods after that. I was working late and went into the conference room to grab my laptop. Inside were two co-workers slow dancing to a song playing from a phone speaker. No lights, no talking. Just a silent, slightly off-rhythm dance in the dark. When they saw me, they didn't stop. One of them said, "We do this when no one's around." Then they kept dancing. I just grabbed my stuff and left. Have you ever seen someone fake an emergency to get out of work? I had a co-worker who once staged a family emergency by walking into the manager's office with tears in her eyes and saying her cousin had been in a car crash. She left immediately. 30 minutes later, she posted a photo on Instagram from the beach, feet in the sand, drink in hand, captioned "Mental Health Day," nail polish emoji. HR found it within the hour. She was gone by the end of the week. A guy I worked with claimed he had food poisoning every time there was a staff meeting. It happened so often that someone joked about keeping a chart. Then one day he forgot and came in wearing a t-shirt from the concert he'd been too sick to attend the night before. His calendar alibi fell apart. He called in sick the next day too. That time he actually got written up, not for skipping work, but for poor performance at lying. One woman ran out of the office crying, saying her dog had gone missing. Everyone was supportive, even helped look online for lost pet listings. Turns out her dog had been dead for 3 years. She just didn't want to do the quarterly inventory. When someone asked about the breed, she panicked and said cat. That's when people started putting it together. A guy once said he had to leave because his apartment caught fire. Total lie. But he forgot his keys on his desk, and when someone tried to return them, they saw him across the street at a burger place, happily eating outside. He made eye contact, froze mid-bite, and just slowly slid under the table like a possum playing dead. We had a temp who claimed her brother was in labor. Her exact words were, "My brother's going into labor and I have to be there for him." When someone questioned her, she doubled down and said, "Don't assume his journey." She left. We never saw her again. A coworker once faked an emergency appendectomy by calling in and saying, "They're wheeling me into surgery right now." An hour later, he posted a photo from a sushi restaurant. We blew it up and framed it next to the office fridge under the title "Miraculous Recovery." There was a guy who said his grandmother had passed away 3 times. Same grandma. Different causes. When HR confronted him, he said, "It's complicated." The 3rd time, he asked for bereavement leave again and someone asked, "Is it her again?" He just nodded and left. One person claimed they had to go to court for a speeding ticket. Totally believable, until they came back with a tan and a braid in their hair, talking about how the ocean fixes everything. Management didn't fire them, but from that day forward we all called them lawyer. I had a coworker who faked a back injury so they could skip inventory day. They showed up the next week wearing a back brace and doing exaggerated groans every time they sat down. Someone caught them sprinting through the parking lot after work when they thought no one was watching. The brace was gone by Monday. There was a guy who faked being sick so many times that management required a doctor's note. He submitted a handwritten note that said, he was very sick. Signed, Doctor. They asked who wrote it. He said, "My uncle. He's not a doctor but he's very intuitive." Fired on the spot. What's the most unexpected thing that ever happened during your shift? I was working the front desk at a hotel when a goat walked in. Just trotted right through the automatic doors and stood by the coffee station like it was waiting for someone. Nobody claimed it, and we didn't have livestock policies, so I gave it a name tag that said VIP guest. Animal control came an hour later. The goat headbutted the vending machine on the way out. Still the most exciting Tuesday of my life. At a call center, the power went out during a thunderstorm. Phones, computers, everything shut down, except one desk phone that kept ringing. It wasn't connected to power or a network anymore. A guy answered it as a joke, said hello, and turned completely pale. Then he just hung up and said, "We're not answering that one again." Nobody ever found out how it rang. During a night shift at a gas station, a guy walked in wearing a tuxedo and asked if we sold wedding cake. When I said no, he bought a pack of powdered donuts and a bottle of orange soda, said "That'll do," and walked out. 2 hours later, his bride came in. Dress, makeup, the whole deal, and bought a lighter and a bag of gummy worms. I still don't know if that was a wedding or a weird scavenger hunt. Working retail, I once had a customer return a vacuum cleaner, and inside the box was a live pigeon. Not a plush pigeon. A very confused, slightly dusty bird. When I asked why, the customer said, "It wasn't mine." I gave them a refund and called animal services. The pigeon rode shotgun with them when they picked it up. I worked at a diner when a guy proposed to his girlfriend, using a grilled cheese sandwich. He had written "Will you marry me?" in ketchup on the plate. She burst out laughing, said yes, and they both started crying. Then her ex-boyfriend, who happened to be in the booth behind them, started clapping slowly and said, "You always liked cheese more than me." He left without paying. At a movie theater job, a woman came out of a horror movie screaming and said she'd seen her ex in the film. Not in the audience, in the actual movie. She dragged us into the theater and paused the frame. Sure enough, there he was, blurry but recognizable, in the background of a crowd scene. She stormed out yelling, he said he hated scary movies. I was working at a tech store when someone came in, walked directly to the headphones display, put on a pair, and started breakdancing in total silence. No music, no explanation. After 30 seconds, he stopped, bowed, and left. The security camera footage became company legend. At a grocery store, a woman walked up to the deli counter and asked if we sold left-handed ham. I asked what that meant, and she said, "Ham sliced from the left side of the pig." When I told her pigs are symmetrical, she whispered, "That's what they want you to think," and walked away. I was working night shift at a 24-hour gym. Around 2 a.m., a man came in wearing medieval armor. Full helmet, chainmail, sword on his back. He went straight to the bench press and started working out like it was totally normal. When asked why, he said, "Leg day is for squires." Then he left without breaking character. On a quiet morning shift at a bookstore, someone came in and asked for the book that screams. I thought it was a joke, but he was dead serious. Said he heard it once when he was closer to the moon. We showed him some horror novels. He picked up a cookbook, sniffed it, nodded, and left without buying anything.